Hey, so today I'm excited to bring you a special episode where you're going to get to hear from one of my amazing stressless eating clients. Now, I've told you before that I am not here to persuade you or convince you or try to sell you on the fact that the diet mentality is the real problem here, and that the journey that I believe all women need to go on to create their freedom only comes when you take the time to heal your relationship with food and your body and yourself. So instead, I'm just going to let you hear it from women who have been where you are and have been locked inside their own food and body and shame prisons, and they've come out on the other side victorious. I'll let you hear it from them and see it through their eyes. And remember, this is a pretty big deal for these gals to share their journey, because remember, this topic tends to carry around a lot of weight and a lot of shame. And in these case study interviews, they do not hold back. Like, they share the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. I'm talking their fears, their struggles, their skepticism, all of it. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. All right, well, we are live, and hello, and I'm here with my amazing client, Carley, who has been so gracious to share her journey, her story, her truth. You're going to hear from her directly, but really one of the reasons I'm so excited, among other things, for Carley to share her journey is because she is literally the youngest person who has ever come through the Stressless Eating program. And so every person that comes through the program has their own story of like, am I too old? Am I too this? Am I too far gone? And we're going to talk about how age played a factor in your journey as well. But one of the reasons that when we talked about even just sharing your story, like you were just like, hey, I can show other 20 somethings that you don't have to live like this. And you can, heal this before you bring it forward into your life. Then, that was one of the big motivations for you being here today. So thank you in advance. Hello, first of all, say hi to everyone listening.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what I'd love to do is just kind of, dive right in and just kind of share a little bit about you. Really, first off, just kind of talk to us a little bit about, where were you just a few months ago before you started this program? What was your life like? What was your relationship with food like? What was your relationship with your body like? Like, where were you in your journey before we met?
Yeah, so before starting this program, I was 23, just navigating the first year out of college, which is just a crazy, weird transition time in general of half the people your age are partying every weekend still, and people are getting married, and everyone's just kind of trying to figure out like what their next steps are. And so I just was really in that transition phase that kind of brought to light the problems I was having with food that I had been in denial about for a long time. I had known that I had an emotional reliance and just not healthy relationship with food, not healthy relationship with my body, but it kind of brought to light going through like a stressful transition period, how big of a problem it was and that I could no longer deny it anymore. And so I just was in a cycle of binging and restricting with food, and food just took up so much of my mental energy. I think one of the things I told you when we first had our first call was that one of the things that bothers me is food is taking up so much of my headspace that I'm not being present with the people I want to be present with. And that also really bothered me. I would be at a cookout or, going to eat with friends. And prior to even going, I would be stressed about checking the menu and what foods I had deemed good and bad and what I could eat and couldn't eat. And it was just this such a thing that just took up so much headspace that no one around me even really knew that I was thinking about, but it was, and maybe people didn't even know that I wasn't being present, but I knew that I wasn't being as present as I wanted and could be and should be to the people I care about the most. And then it was just the cycle of shame and guilt and binging and restricting, and I felt guilt about not being the best friend or daughter or sister that I could be. And then also just complete self-rejection and negative self-talk about my body. And I wasn't even necessarily like quote unquote overweight, but just so judgmental of everything about my body, constant comparison to other people, what I see on Instagram, just complete judgment of my body, and letting that hold me back, and not wearing clothes I wanted to wear, and doing the things I wanted to do because I was so judgmental of my body. I would project that judgment on other people when I would meet someone new, in my head, all they were looking at were the flaws that I saw in my body. And so it just really, I just felt stuck.
Wow. You bring up a couple of things that, people that are listening to this right now can absolutely resonate with. This idea that like food and dieting and restriction, whether it was like what you were eating and what you weren't eating, because you were on both ends of the spectrum, it's almost like this full-time job. It's like always with us, and then I know you were in school and working and just being a college student at the time, and it's just like, it's always part of your life, and I think we can all resonate with that. But something else that you said is, and this is what I want to be clear on for anyone listening, like this problem is not, like we've talked about before, it's not a food problem, it's not a weight problem. You even said it's not even like even not being overweight, you know what I mean? It's a feeling. When we feel that way about ourselves, it's not logical. It doesn't matter what our body looks like. It is how we perceive ourselves. And it doesn't discriminate. It comes again, it's like whatever size you wear, whatever, weight you weigh, this problem doesn't discriminate against or for that. You know what I mean? So you're driving home some really important points. And I think really that was the thing. It's like when you have this struggle, and just like you were saying, nobody knew, like it was your deepest held secret, and you put on this happy face, and nobody knew, but you knew. It was everywhere that you went 24 hours a day.
Yeah. And I woke up thinking about food. I went to bed thinking about food. And there was so much just chatter and clutter about I considered myself a healthy person. I strived to be healthy and eat healthy, and thought I had a healthy relationship with working out, and worked out 6 days a week. And there's just so much out there of eat this, don't eat that. One person says this is good, but the other person says this is bad. And so it was just I was making an effort to try to be healthy, but there was just so much out there where I just overanalyzed everything I did and ate. And it wasn't until this program I was like, okay, let's stop all of the outside chatter and kind of force me to tap into my inner wisdom and my body of what makes me feel good, how do I forget what everyone else says, but really listen to myself, of letting my body guide the decisions of what I eat.
Right. Yeah. And your thoughts, totally shifting your thoughts. It's so interesting because, every woman that I talk to that is in a position that you were just a few months ago, they feel like, man, am I lazy? Am I weak-willed? Am I self-sabotager? And it's no, 99.9% of the time, these are the hardest working women that they've ever, you're the hardest, it wasn't for lack of commitment or lack of trying. You were trying all the things. It was just, again, just like everybody else following this broken model. And it's such a loud chatter of a model. Everywhere you go, everywhere you scroll, it's try this, don't do that, the good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the should, the shouldn't. And it just gets so confusing and overwhelming. And that's, again, where you were as well.
Yeah. And it just felt okay, I'm succeeding in all these other areas of my life. Why is this the one thing that I can't figure out, Totally. And I think that's where a lot of the shame came from, and me not wanting to open up to other people about it. And I don't think I realized how many people struggle with the same things, because it seems like everyone else doesn't. And social media and Instagram, and this is something we talked about a lot, it just was the perception, and again, my own thoughts about other people and how things appeared to be.
Absolutely. And as we're learning, appearances can be very deceiving. It's like, you can put on this happy face, but like, what is it really?
Yeah.
So yeah. So how has your life changed as a result of enrolling in the program? What's different?
I mean, everything. To just give like a short answer, just everything. The way, and it all comes back to the thoughts. And I have a whole new way and system of thinking about myself, about my body, about food, just about life in general. And it just has freed. I feel like I have just all of this mental energy to do other things that I want to do that I spent thinking about food and analyzing my body. All of that time I spent thinking about those things, I now get to like harness and direct in like other ways. And it just feels so good. I feel like I've lost 20 pounds, of just mental weight.
Yeah. The weight of the weight. You know what I mean? So it's, and that's the thing. It's like what you were saying before of all this time that you were spending, it was like a full-time job. It's like you get your life back. You get your time back. You get to be present in those conversations and in those relationships, So as it is for all of us, it's ever evolving, but like, what is your relationship with food like? What is your relationship with yourself like? Like, what is your, just relationship with all of your thoughts and your mindset, your emotions? How is that shifted?
Yeah, it's transformed. And just my first thoughts always are checking in with myself and what I want and how I want to feel. And those two questions guide everything. And it comes to my relationship with exercise. Before starting this program, it was like I did these super high intensity workouts 6 days a week that I felt like I had to do to be quote unquote healthy. And it was something I had to like check off my to-do list. And I was like getting praise for it, giving myself praise for it, but it wasn't really a healthy relationship. I was rejecting my body on days where I needed rest to just check off the check mark of doing this super high intensity workout, and the belief that a workout had to be super high intensity to be a quote unquote, good workout or good for you. And so just my relationship with, and I don't even like to say exercise anymore, just movement has like changed. And it's so cool because I still love to do those type of workouts. And there's the days where my body is like, you need to go just hard in the gym today. You need to not be able to breathe, But there's other days where it's like, I'm going to go for a walk and stretch today. And like that feels so good. And that is movement. And that my goal is just to move in whatever way that feels good to my body. So it's just been so cool to tap into like just listening to what my body wants and being okay with whatever that is for the day. And same thing with food of just, it's okay that there's some days I'm more hungry than others. It's okay, like to just, to listen to your body and what, to have the goal to want to nourish yourself, but also to listen to your body. And when I'm hungry, to eat and not, in the past, I felt like I could only eat in like a certain window and, all those types of things. Had complete carb phobia. Like I said before, just stressed about the social aspect of eating. And so it's just so cool to like get invited to go out to eat with a friend and not feel like I have to dictate where we go eat because I can only eat at certain places to get certain things. Like I can order pizza and like have the pizza and be totally fine with it, but it also not turn into a binge because I'm allowing myself to have the quote unquote what I had deemed a bad food. And I can have 2-3 slices of pizza and then I'm good. Not coming from a place of lack, And coming from a place of abundance around food was the thing that changed it all. If I'm allowed to have this, I'm going to have as many bites as I need. And that's okay, because if I want it again tomorrow, I'll eat it again tomorrow. And I will, again, just have a few bites instead of, oh, this is the one time I'm allowing myself to have the food I'm not supposed to eat, so I'm going to eat every food I'm not supposed to eat. And that was really the behind the scenes that no one else got to see. Of I would go to the restaurant with a friend and eat the salad, and everyone's like, oh, Carley, you're so healthy, and praising me for my eating habits. And that the shame was well, you don't see what happens when I'm alone or behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many powerful distinctions. You know, the first thing that you mentioned was this idea of so many people have this very punishment driven relationship with exercise. And it's a have to, need to, supposed to, force, persuade yourself. But also a very harder, faster, more. And, you know, even just the word exercise has a lot of connotations associated with it that people think of all of those things I just mentioned. And I love that you were just yeah, I don't even call it exercise anymore. It's just movement. And sometimes that means getting my butt kicked and sweating sweating out all the things, you know, and sometimes that means moving and stretching, but it's based on my version of what I need that day, you know? And I think another distinction that you brought up, and I don't know how much you've been exposed to this, but a lot of people that I talk to get exposed to the whole, intuitive eating thing and just listen to your body. And it's always well, how do I do that? My intuition, is broken, so to speak. My gauge is broken. I don't know what it even means. And and that's where it's there's no more rules. It's the tools. It's here's how to actually bridge that gap. Listening to your body and connecting to your body is really great in theory, but if you're not ever taught how to do it, it's how do I actually do that? And that's really what you're talking about is you brought that conceptual thing to life and now you have it. And just like I share, you're on the calls. I'm I can't tell you what that is for you, but I can give you the framework and ask you the questions to help you figure out what that is for you, because that's your unique recipe, your new association with exercise, your new association with food. I'm just sitting over here. You see me just smiling. I'm just so excited for you, because just like you, most of the women that I talk to, they're, it's always the conversation that you're having right now, you know what I mean? When we first met, it's every woman I talk to is what if I'm the one person this doesn't work for? I feel so far gone. That's all I've ever known. You know what I mean? So how does it feel to even just share what you're sharing right now? What would you have said to yourself a few months ago? I mean, does it even feel real?
Yeah, I wouldn't have believed I would have been sitting here a few months ago. I was hopeful, but again, it is that belief and insecurity that I might be the one person that this doesn't work for. And so it's cool to kind of be on the other side and just see how quick. I think that also is part of my doubt is is it really going to happen in a few months, Leanne? Is that really possible? Because I've been living the same way for so long. You think, oh, is it in just a few months that can be completely different? Yeah. And so it's really cool to be the person on the other side and to be having these conversations at the age that I am, and that I get to have this for the rest of my life. Yeah. I think I knew when we talked, and the first time we talked, I just felt like we were kindred spirits, I had just known you. And I told you, I don't want to live like this forever. When I have children one day, I don't want to, morph their beliefs around food and their body in a negative way, because I have those beliefs about myself. And so I'm just proud of myself that I went through all of this and invested in this and in myself now. And I'm already seeing the fruits of that, but I know it's only going to be greater as I move forward.
Yeah. The fact of, what you said about it happening really fast. And that's what I say to everybody. I'm listen, this is not a magic pill. You are going to work your butt off. But the reason it's so powerful is because we do it so intensively, rather than spreading it out over an hour a week for years. It's let's just hit this up in 12 weeks and hit the nail on the head. But one of the things that you and I also had a conversation about, and I'll just be the first to admit, like, you and I talked about this and it came up on the call last week, is like, you shifted my beliefs. I used to have a belief that you needed to be you definitely need to be like a certain maturity level, because a lot of people, the truth is, a lot of women your age aren't necessarily ready to have these conversations. Like, there's a lot, and I'm generalizing, and again, I'll be the first to admit, like, you are the first person that shifted my beliefs. But like, there's a lot of women I talk to, they want to get in their skinny jeans fast. They want to lose a bunch of weight really quickly. And that's obviously not the conversation that we're having, right? But there's also a lot of women that want to, like, talk about the problem and psychoanalyze it to death and spend years in therapy to not fix it, or worse, like, stay stuck as a victim to why they'll never fix it. And obviously, we talk about that a lot, like being a victim to our own story. Like, that is a non-negotiable too. I can't help people that are stuck in their victim story. And you and I had a conversation about your age, and you were the first person that I was like, wow, you know what? This is not an age thing. This is not a demographic. It's a psychographic. It's a willingness. And it's a conversation. And it came from your end too, because, you asked about the age of people I work with. I was like, yeah, normally it's, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And you had fears too, like, oh, is it going to be a disconnect? And we were talking about this the other day, like, it actually made it that much better. Can you just speak to that? So if there's anybody who's listening that is, in your age bracket, and now we have somebody in the program that you just met that's even younger, she's 20. And because again, my beliefs have been shifted, and now I know it's a psychographic, not a demographic, and a willingness and an eagerness to solve this. But like, anybody who is, in their 20s or even younger and is like, you know what? Well, first of all, I'd love to hear what were your thoughts about your age and how it related to this. And what would you say to anybody that's your age about healing this now?
Yeah, I think that when you told me, because I had no idea the ages of people you worked with, I honestly assumed that there was people my age. And so I was a little surprised when you told me that there wasn't. And that also kind of sparked a little insecurity in my mind, of especially just joining the group, of like, am I gonna relate to these other women, and are they gonna relate to me, and or just be like, oh, this little like girl that's like here. But it was so cool to see how much we related. Like, there was no one that I did not relate with, and I think it just like fueled me even more, because I saw so much of myself in these other women, and it was like, okay, it gave me more drive to kind of focus in now, because I just saw myself 30 years down the road, Absolutely. And it's just, I don't know, I wish more people my age were ready for this conversation. And I think there probably are a lot of people that are ready. They just haven't been exposed to this type of conversation. And just the beliefs it starts with the beliefs, every weight loss program, diet hack, whatever, all virtually is the exact same thing, and because none of them go deeper than that. And I just would love more people my age to even be exposed that this is a conversation that you can be having, and it's never too early to have the conversation, and that it's a conversation that is literally will change the trajectory of your life, and it's one of the things we've talked about of the longevity, and we're thinking in the long term and not the short term anymore. It's not the 0 to 100 instant self gratification, world that I think especially people my age are very accustomed to, just with like social media. And that's one of the things, I did a total social media break during this program. It is the best thing I ever did, because I don't know, which is scary to kind of think about, that since I've had Instagram, I don't know if there's been a day I haven't been on Instagram. And so it's just without even realizing it, and it's so subconscious, but it's just because it's, kind of the age of my generation, that you just put so much stock in likes and, all of those types of things. And so one of the biggest things for me was shifting from thinking about all those short-term things and the instant gratification to having conversations about longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it best. It all starts with your beliefs. And I just want to thank you for shifting my beliefs about that, because you're right. And I think back to myself when I was 23, and gosh, I wish somebody had had these kinds of conversations with me, and I think you're right. Like there are gals your age. We know it to be true. It's like the first person that broke the 4-minute mile back in, whatever year that was. And then it got broken again and again. It's like, people you're right. There's a need for this, and the women that are ready. And it's like that prevention rather than the cure, it's both, but it is. And you saw when you got welcomed into the program, everyone was like, Carley, we wish we had learned this when we were that age. It would have saved us decades of suffering and struggling. And, I'm just really grateful to you. And also, back to what you were saying about it all starts with the beliefs. I think a lot of women, I know a lot of women, and I was one of them, think that you have to go down this deep, dark rabbit hole of your past to go heal something that's been with you for a long time. And I think that, again, just like you, most of the people I work with, like, we've done that road. We've psychoanalyzed our past to death. And all we've done is gotten really clear on what didn't work and really clear on why we're sad and angry or all the things, grieving, but not given these like present day tools to actually deal with it in the right now. And so, without going into too much detail about it, that happened with us. Like, I think it was maybe like the second or third week, you came to me, reached out to me on the help desk, and you were like, Leanne, I don't know if this is relevant, but this is coming up for me right now, and I really want to handle it. What do you think? And I messaged you back right away. I was like, this is so relevant. This is like everything. And I even said to you right then and there, I was like, Carley, do not buy into the lie that you have to spend like decades digging this up, going back in the past, all that. There's a very right now way to address this. And you were so coachable, and you literally came back to me a day later. You're like, I did everything, and here's what I did. And here's the shifts that's happening. So without going into too much detail about it, like, just kind of share what your experience was of like cleaning up the past, so to speak, but like very quickly, and the healing that has happened because of that.
Yeah, so my mom passed away pretty unexpectedly when I was 14, and I had gone to therapy for a while for that, which has helped me in its own ways, but never in relation. And I don't even think I had put together that had anything to do with my relationship with food. And so that was really I just kept thinking about my mom, and I just kept, a new layer of grief of like, the onion was kind of like shedding and coming up. And what I realized is that I had to forgive myself for my emotional dependence and reliance on food that developed when my mother passed away. And I didn't even put two and two together that really was the root of all of the struggles I've had for so long. And when I realized that, I think I told you, like, I am just giving my 14-year-old self the biggest hug and so much forgiveness right now. And I think especially when you're 14, like, and you're a teenager, you always think you're older than you are. You want to be older. I don't think until now I am getting older that I realize how young I was when that happened. And the compassion for myself I was a 14-year-old girl who lost the most important person in my life. And I didn't miss a day of school. It was just business as usual. I didn't really, take time or face it. I didn't know what to do. So I didn't face it. It just was business as usual. And my coping during that time started to lean towards food. And now that I think about it, it's so clear to me. To be honest, I would go home from school, and it was all I could do to get through the day of school. And I just wanted the world to go away. So I would just eat to the point where we all know the feeling when you're full, but really all your body is going to do is sleep. And so I started doing that just so I could fall asleep. and just have that reprieve, like for a moment. And so now it makes so much sense looking back, and there's no shame about it anymore, which is just like the best feeling of like, I did what I could do as a 14-year-old girl to get through and cope with the situation. And it makes so much sense how just the origin of all of this. And so it was like, okay, now I can move forward. Like I had to forgive myself for that. And everyone's story is obviously different, but I think everyone in their own way can find forgiveness for themselves and just let go of the shame to then, like you said, it wasn't, I had to psychoanalyze it. It was like, I realized it. Like now I have the tools to move forward, and it doesn't have to be this weight anymore and this thing. And it helped me find so much forgiveness for myself, but also for my family that I didn't even know that I needed, and how I had maybe put unrealistic expectations on them of different roles when my mom passed away. And so it's been really cool to also see those relationships get better just through me forgiving myself. And so that was, the game changer. That really paved the way for the whole program for me.
Yeah, and it's so good. This is so good. And thank you so much for sharing that with all of us and just letting us into your world. And really just to kind of mirror back what you shared from my own perspective, like, yeah, we spent probably like 10% of our time and energy on the problem or the origin story, as you put it. And also just like figuring out like, oh, that's why that happened, and understanding the why behind the what. And the rest of the 90% was focused on like the tools that you said that you now have access to, that you can wash, rinse, and repeat. We used them on this specifically, but like to actually bring you into the right now and have right now conversations with yourself instead of a lot of modalities and therapy processes. And this isn't knocking therapy, but oftentimes we do get caught up in the regression of going back and really focusing on the past and the origin, story. And it's like, that is really helpful to a point until it's actually just really unhelpful, and it locks us back in our past. And that was kind of what was happening, bringing our past into our future, especially when it gets fired and wired within a comforting mechanism around food. And then our inner perfectionist that thinks that we need to be a certain way or look a certain way. And then the control side of it comes in. So it was just this kind of like mashing of the goals, so to speak, but you didn't even know it because it was unconscious. Your brain was doing it without you, and you didn't have the tools. And then as soon as we just addressed it, I remember there was a span of like a week where we got on the phone, we talked it through, I had you go do some stuff, and then you came back to me and it was like breakthrough. Oh, this happened. And then the food stuff, I mean, we had to put in the work, but it was just, or I say you had to put in the work, but like it was so simple after that. Simple, not easy. You know what I mean? You still had to really, go through the process of learning the tools and figuring out how they integrated with you and putting together your recipe. But all of that stuff that was underground, that was just tugging at you, that was subconsciously being like, no, Carley, don't heal this. We need you. We need this comfort, which is a lot of fears that a lot of women have. It's like, they're not necessarily ready to give up their comfort because it's all they've ever known. But when you know to actually give yourself what you need and heal those places, your body isn't needing, and your brain, I should say, isn't needing all those comforting mechanisms anymore. And that's exactly what happened for you. And it just happened so fast. Like you said, a decade ago, you've been trying to process, therapy and different modalities. It's not like lack of a commitment, but you just needed these tools right now. So thanks for sharing that with us. So, I mean, why do you think that this program was a couple of things? Like, what was different about this than other things that you've done? And why was this more successful than what you've done in the past?
I think the main thing that's different, and is also why it was successful, is it's a more holistic program in view of your complete self. It's not just physical, and it's not just about food. And it starts with a holistic inventory kind of yourself and your mental, physical, emotional, social like state, and focuses on healing all of those things first and repairing the relationship with yourself and your self-worth and the stories you tell yourself, the self-talk, all of those things. It starts there. It's not like, oh yeah, let me fit into this dress for this, event coming up, or let me have this body for Instagram. And like, it starts deeper, and you have to go deeper to really heal it and to really start there. And then, like you said, the food stuff was simple. It still took work on my end, but it was so simple. It did not take a lot of mental energy. It just shifted. And so it really was going deeper and taking complete ownership and acceptance of where I was and how I was also contributing to that and keeping myself there. And, I wasn't going to move forward continually telling myself, like, Carley, you're not good enough. Carley, your body, isn't worthy. Like, you're not worthy of it. All of the hanging on every mistake, psychoanalyzing everything I said, replaying conversations in my head, like all of those things. Like, I was never going to be able to move forward or heal it until I took a big look in the mirror at those things and was able to own it and shift it. And then once that was shifted, and like I said, it was the holistic like view of just me as a person, then the food and the physical stuff just came.
Yeah. And I really want to reiterate that for anyone who's listening and who needs to hear this. Like, ladies, you heard her say at the beginning, like, one of the first questions I asked is, where were you? And it was like, food was the epicenter of her life. Her body was the epicenter of her life. What she should eat, shouldn't eat, what her body looks like, comparisonitis, all of that. And then once she did the foundational work, which people tend to skip, right? And don't get me wrong, you need a better system of thinking around food, because the diet mentality is a poisonous, insidious, it's a disordered way of thinking, but once you do that, the rest is simple, and it just like, it really just falls into place. And everybody that joins this program is really like in kind of a rush to get to the food stuff. And I'm like, I promise you, it is so worth doing this other stuff, because this is the reason that you're running for food. This is the reason that you're gripping to the chains of control and restriction and dieting. And like, once you get this sorted and healed, it's just like everything falls into place. So I love that it is kind of just this full circle journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's cool because it opened up other ways and mechanisms that I was numbing or coping that weren't just food. I mean, food was a big one for me, but it also opened up other ways that I was numbing, and social media being one of those, Netflix, like I just became so aware of ways that I was coping that I didn't know I was even using. And so, and all those things are great and have, can be used as a tool or a weapon. And there, I had to become real clear on when I was using them as a weapon against myself. And going through the first few weeks and kind of doing the deeper stuff, the food stuff and all the different ways of numbing had already started to shift before we even started having conversations about food.
How cool is that? I love it. I love it. So yeah, just a couple more questions for you. What was it that made you know that it was worth it to really invest in healing this? Like, rather than going down the diet approach or, listening to more podcasts or investing in weight loss, like, what was it that you knew, like, why was it worth it for you to really invest this one time to just get this lifelong solution rather than go down the short-term Band-Aid approach any longer?
Yeah, I think I just so connected with what you had to say when we spoke. And I had never, kind of like I said earlier, I think more women would be open to this conversation if they were exposed to it. And I think the first time, like listening to your webinar and then talking to you on the phone, I connected so much with what you had to say and your philosophy that I just knew it was worth the leap of faith. And I just felt like God put me in contact with you. And I just knew it was what I was supposed to be doing and knew we were connected for a reason. And I think it just really clicked for me that when you said it's not about the food, we have to go deeper. I had never thought about it like that. And that is just what clicked for me. And I was like, okay, I from the first conversations we had, I've been telling you, I don't want to live this way, forever. I want to do what I can to fix it. I don't, want this to carry into my future relationships and hopefully when I'm a mom and all of those things. So I knew I had wanted to fix it now. I'd been trying, I just didn't know how until I heard you speaking about it. And I was like, oh, like it was just such a light bulb of like, yeah, of course. Like, it's not just about the food and, the working out and all of those things. Like there is a deeper component to it. And it was a few months ago that we were having those conversations. And so it is so worth a few months of hard work to be on the other side. And, the work continues, but I'm just in such a different and better place and just am showing up for myself in ways I've always wanted, but wasn't able to before.
Absolutely. And it's like one of those questions where it's like, yeah, well, she's just out of the program. Like it's easy now, but like what you've learned, I mean, can you see now why I say like, it's a language that the more you practice it, the easier it gets, the better you get at it. And it just becomes who you are more and more. So you don't have to practice it as much as intensively. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Is there anything that has like upheaved your life or that you can't like, is one of those things that like, this isn't something you could practice forever? Or can you see how this is just like your forever way of thinking and it will get easier?
Yeah, no, it's crazy how simple you make it and that it really is. And it's just like the small daily things and just ways of thinking and approach that change everything. And it's just, yeah, it's nothing crazy. Like it just is. It is who I am now.
It's just who you are. Yeah, I love it.
Than any of the weight or physical stuff. And I know I've like shared this with you that I was feeling such a change in myself. And, not many people knew I was doing this program because I really wanted it to be something I did for myself. And I think it was about halfway through the program, I saw one of my best friends that I hadn't seen since starting the program. And she was like, Carley, like, what is, like, something is different. I don't know what it is, but like your energy is like incredible. Like something is different and like, I'm so about it. And that was the first time I think I'd ever really received the compliment that like about my energy and just about, just about my being and like who I was. And I just felt so light and like present. And it just was such like a aha moment that like, that is the ultimate compliment you could ever receive. Like she could have told me I looked great in my jeans that day and I wouldn't even remember it today to be telling you, So that really was like kind of a cool moment.
It's not a seeing, it's a being, it's a feeling, it's who we are. And like, I mean, that's the best compliment ever when somebody can say to you like, wow, you walk in the room and I feel the lift, like the temperature in the room goes up when you walk in, It's just this contagious energy. So yeah. I love it. So what would you say to any woman that is just on the fence about really investing in this kind of conversation? Because it's very seductive to want to just like go back, especially this time of year, go back on keto, go back to Weight Watchers for the umpteenth time. Like, what would you say to anybody that is really on the fence about having this conversation? They have their own fears that maybe they're like the only one that this wouldn't work for, or destined to stay this way forever, or whatever it is. Like, what would you say? And maybe their age, anybody that's your age or younger or older, whatever it is, like, what would you say to anybody that's on the fence about taking this plunge? Because they might have a preconceived notion about what it would take or how it would work for them.
Yeah, I would just say, like, one of the biggest beliefs I shifted that I think a lot of people have is this, like, either or, mentality. Like and I think you said it, like, you have to be like healthy or happy, or like you can't have, I want to be healthy and happy, and I think that's what everyone wants, and I just, if you at all connect with any of what Leanne says or what we've talked about, like, it is just so well worth investing in it and just getting off the hamster wheel. It's just going to be more and more of the same until you really dig deep to make a big shift. And the shift takes work, but it's really simple. And so I just, especially if anyone in their 20s or teens or at any age, like, it's never too early and it's never too late. I think this is a bigger conversation that, everyone can be invited into in their own time. But if you at all feel like this is a conversation you're ready to have, it's truly transformational. It could really change your life and is well worth the investment in yourself.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your truth and just, letting us behind the scenes of your journey and all of your experiences, the good, the bad, everything in between. Really grateful to hear your perspective. And for anybody who's listening that, have had some of the same beliefs that you did, I know this will definitely resonate with so many people. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Ladies, we're signing out for now, but thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again soon. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard and you're interested in breaking out of your own food, body, and diet prison, here's what I want you to do next. Head on over to stresslesseating.com. That's stresslesseating.com and sign up to watch the Stressless Eating webinar, where I'll walk you through the exact 5-step game plan my female clients use to conquer emotional eating, self-sabotage, and finally heal themselves from the restrictive all-or-nothing diet mentality for good, but without obsessing or spending years in therapy to address it. I've laid it all out for you there in 5 easy steps. Remember, healing your relationship with food and your body does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen, and we've helped clients all over the world take back their power from the food and find true and lasting freedom, while enjoying life and warm chocolate chip cookies along the way. To see if we can help you do the same, head on over to stresslesseating.com. I'm Leanne Ellington, and I'll see you next time.